Hey guys, I'm just going to take my 2017 Ex-t 6-speed coupe out for a cruise in the snow. Hope you enjoy.
Jumped off the wall with a careful speed, twisting to the side and landing back on the ground.
Gonna go for a little winter drive here.
Going very quickly. At least I'm not stumbling anymore. With each jump, he shoved the visceral panic farther down, up, back onto the wall, down again and again, sucking him strength. Yes, this is natural. Yes, this is me. He continued running along the chasm bottom, feeling a surge of excitement. Shadows waved him on as he dodged between piles of bone and moss. He leaped over a large pool of water, but misjudged its size. He came down, about to splash into the shallow water, but by reflex, he looked upward and lashed himself toward the sky. For a brief moment, Kaladin stopped falling down and fell up instead. His momentum continued forward, and he cleared the pool, then lashed himself downward again. He landed in a trough, sweating. I had lashed myself upward and forward.
So I'm not going to get winter tires this winter, so I'm still on the factory stock Continentals. So everything stock, I guess.
Control this gift he had been given, and it was a gift. Embrace this. The sky is now mine. Kaladin dashed forward. He leaped and lashed himself to the wall. No pausing, no hesitance, no fear. He hit at a dead rock. But that was simple. Kaladin jumped off the wall and looked directly above him at the opposite wall. He lashed himself in that direction and flung his body into a flip. He landed, going down on one knee upon what had been the ceiling to him a moment before.
You did it! What changed?
I did.
Well, yes, but what about you?
Everything. She frowned at him. He grinned back, then took off at a run along the side of the chasm. Shallan strode down the mansion's back steps to the kitchen, thumping each foot down harder than it would normally fall, trying to imitate being heavier than she was. The cook looked up from her novel and dropped it in a wide-eyed panic, moving to stand.
Bright Lord!
Everyone waves at everyone in
Shallan
this
scratched
town.
at her face to mask her lips.
Good thing about living in
Pattern
a
spoke
town like
the
this,
words she
everyone's so
told him to say in a perfect imitation of Amram's voice. The cook remained seated as ordered. Hopefully, from that position, she wouldn't notice that Amram was shorter than he should be.
So I got
Even
traction
walking
control
on her
on.
tiptoes, which was masked by the illusion, she was much shorter than the High Lord.
You spoke to the maid, Telesh, earlier.
Yes, Bright Lord. I sent her off to work with Stein for the evening. I thought the girl needed a little direction.
No, her return was at my command. I have sent her out again and told her not to speak of what happened tonight.
What happened tonight?
You are not to speak of this event. You interfered with something that is not of your concern. Pretend you did not see Telesh. Never speak of this event to me. If you do, I will pretend none of this happened. Do you understand?
The cook grew pale and nodded her head, sinking down in her chair. Shallan nodded to her curtly,
Saskatchewan
then walked
roads,
from the kitchen
huge bumps.
and out into the night. There, she ducked to the side of the building, heart pounding. A grin formed on her face anyway. Out of sight, she exhaled stormlight in a cloud, then stepped forward. As she passed through it, the image of Amram vanished, replaced by that of the messenger boy she'd been imitating before. She scrambled back to the front of the building and sat down on the steps, slumping and leaning with her head on her hand. Amram and Hav.
So I have the screen protector screen on order. I have the clear side markers on order. I already have the amber bulbs for them here. Other than that, I'm looking for a set of rims to put a nice set of summer tires on. And then I'm going to use the factory rims to put winter tires on next year. So I'm either going to spend a little bit on rims, or I'm going to see how plasti dipping a cheap set of Acura rims or something like that, to see this set of Acura rims on eBay that I could probably get fairly cheap. And you know, I've been watching lots of YouTube videos on plasti dipping, and I would like to try, just see how it works, plastic dipping some rims. You know, it'll be, see how it holds up in our winter next year. And, like, I know it'll be fine in the summertime. But I'm just curious to see how it'll go through a winter. So I will keep you up to date on that. And as well, I think I'm going to plastic dip the chrome on the front and possibly beside the mirrors. A little bit slick out here on the highway. This guy wants to pass already. In a big hurry. Big hurry to go sliding. We'll just follow this guy here for now. See how he does for speed.
The downward lashing slowed his momentum upward. The sideways lashing brought him to the wall. He dismissed the downward lashing and hit the wall with one hand, twisting and throwing himself to his feet. He kept running along the chasm wall. When he reached the end of the plateau, he leaped toward the next one and lashed himself at its wall instead.
Faster.
He held nearly all of the stormlight he had left, fetched from the pouches he dropped earlier. He held so much that he glowed like a bonfire. It encouraged him as he jumped and lashed himself forward. Eastward. This made him fall through the chasm. The floor of the chasm whipped along beneath him, plants a blur to his sides. He had to remember that he was falling.
This is not flight. But every second I move, my speed increases.
That didn't stop the feeling of liberty, of ultimate freedom. It just meant this could be dangerous. The winds picked up, and he lashed himself backward at the last moment, slowing his descent as he crashed against the chasm wall before him. That direction was down to him now, so he stood and ran along it. He was using the stormlight at a furious rate, but he didn't need to scream. He was paid like a light-eyed officer of the 6th Dan, and his spheres held not tiny chips of gemstone, but bronze. A month's pay for him now was more than he had ever seen at a time, and the stormlight it held was a vast fortune compared to what he'd once known. He jumped a group of frill blooms, their fronds pulling beneath him. He lashed himself to the other chasm wall and crossed the chasm, landing on his hands.
Got a plow truck ahead of us here. It's good he's clearing the highway out on a Saturday. I was going to pass this fella, but we'll just see what happens here with the plow truck. How visibility is. So we're basically doing 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers below the speed limit. And you know, it handles well. Even though I'm not a fan of the noise that the tires produce, it's a little extra than should be. Alright, let's just see how passing works here. Highways are actually fairly decent. I don't even know if he needs to salt around these corners or not. They seem okay.
of light. He could pick out Syl. He didn't know how. She didn't look different, but he could tell. Like you could pick a family member out of a crowd just by their walk. Syl and her cousins twisted around him in a spiral of light, free and loose, but with a hint of coordination. How long had it been since he felt this good, this triumphant, this alive?
Not since before Tien's death.
Even after saving Bridge 4, darkness had shadowed him. That evaporated. He saw a spire of rock ahead on the plateaus and nudged himself toward it with a careful lashing to the right. Other lashings to his rear slowed his fall enough that when he hit the tip of the spire of rock, he could clutch to it and spin around it, fingers on the smooth cremstone. 100th wind spren broke around him.
Awesome audiobooks I listen to from Graphic Audio. This one here is Words of Radiance, book 2 of the Stormlight Archive. Way of Kings is just so epic. And this one, surprisingly, is even better. So I don't know how that can even be possible, but it is. And they just did such a fantastic job of producing them. I'm such a big fan, and I always listen to them on my way to work. This is actually my route to work. I'm going to turn around here after the bridge at Muscadet store, but and head back. But this is my normal route to work every morning and evening, to and from. And, you know, this car just handles winter roads very well. And if you have true winter tires on, it's just, apparently it handles like a dream if you take the traction control off. Looks like someone did a little skidding there. It does look a little slippery. Across the Saskatchewan River, North Saskatchewan. And so, I'm at 1,218 kilometers now on this car. And I still love it. I'll admit. There's not a whole bunch that I don't like about this car. I love the wireless charger, so I can listen to my audiobooks and charge it to and from work. Handles like a dream in the wintertime. It's a lot smoother than my Honda Genesis was, even though the suspension is not as sporty. But that being said, in my Hyundai Genesis, if you hit a really sort of sharp bump, it would almost rattle your teeth. This one, it doesn't. So I'm really impressed so far. But I will be getting the Progress sway bar for the back eventually. So I'm just going to do a little turnaround here at the store. See no problem braking in the snow. You guys going snowmobiling? Even stomping on it, the traction control. Jeez, it feels pretty good. There's 100. So, yeah, And I did get the back debadged. And I was at the curling rink last night for wings. And I seen a friend who I hadn't seen in a while. And I didn't even know he checked out my car. And he asked me if I was driving an Acura or a Honda. And I said, no, it was a Honda. And he's like, okay, that must be an Accord then. And I'm like, no. And once I told him, he couldn't believe it. So, the Civics look really well, look really nice. Especially the coupe, I believe. Now that I've gotten used to the trunk, and it's less busy without any emblems on the back. Yeah, goes around corners fairly nice. Now we'll see it going up this hill here, which looks fairly icy.
Nonsense. You practice every day.
I have an advantage.
The advantage of talent. When the master musician first picks up an instrument and finds music in it that nobody else can, is that cheating? Is that art unearned just because she is naturally more skilled? Or is it genius?
Kaladin lashed himself westward, back toward the war camps. He didn't want to leave himself stranded in the middle of the shattered plains without stormlight. The tempest within had calmed greatly since he started. He fell in that direction for a time, getting as close as he dared before slowing himself. Then, removed part of the upward lashing and began to drift downward.
I'll take it. Whatever it is that gives me that edge, I'll use it. I'll need it to beat him.
Sil nodded, still sitting on his shoulder.
You don't think he has a spread?
Well,
What he does.
see, it handles perfectly.
It was created to give abilities to men, much as our bomb does.
So, I can't fight him without a sharp blade.
She looked the other way, squeezing her arms together, hugging herself.
Such human gestures. I've avoided the training with the blades that Zahil offers. It's hard to justify. I need to learn how to use one of those weapons.
They're evil.
Because they're symbols of the Knight's broken oaths. But where did they come from in the first place? How were they forged?
Sil didn't answer.
Can a new one be forged? One that doesn't bear the stain of broken promises?
Yes.
How?
She didn't reply. They floated downward for a time in silence until gently coming to rest on a dark plateau. Kaladin got his bearings, then walked over and drifted off the edge, going down into the chasms. He wouldn't want to walk back using the bridges. The scouts would find it odd that he was coming back without having gone out.
Storms. They would have seen me flying out here, wouldn't they? What will they think? Were any close enough to see me land? Well, I can't do anything about it now.
He reached the bottom of the chasm and started walking back toward the war camps, his storm light slowly dying out, leaving him in darkness. He felt deflated without it, sluggish, tired. He fished the last infused sphere from his pocket and used it to light his path.
There's a question you're avoiding. It's been 2 days. When are you going to tell Dalinar about those men that Moash took you to meet?
He didn't listen when I told him about Amaram.
This is obviously different. Those men didn't seem the type who would wait long.
I'll do something about them. I just want to think about it some more. I don't want Moash to get caught in the storm when we bring them down.
She fell silent as he walked the rest of the way, retrieving his spear, then climbed the ladder up onto the plateaus. The sky overhead had grown cloudy, but the weather had been turning towards spring lately.
Enjoy it while you can. The weeping comes soon. Weeks of ceaseless rain. No TM to cheer me up.
His brother had always been able to do that.
Amaram took that from me.
So, I've tried 87 octane in the car, and now I'm trying 91 octane, and then I'm going to try 93 octane. 2 tanks each, just in case some leaks over or whatever. And there is a little bit of a difference in mileage from the 87 to the 91, but nothing substantial so far. So I will keep you up to date on how the 93 octane works. I've heard people say there's a feeling of power by upgrading, but I just going, maybe the 93 will be different, because I will go back to 87 again after the 93, just to see. But I am generally impressed with the gas mileage. Especially since I'm not the most conscientious driver when it comes to the gas pedal.
The winds overnight, playing with her cousins. So far as he knew, she didn't need sleep. He stepped into his private room, feeling tired and drained, but in a pleasing way. Someone stirred in the room. Kaladin spun, leveling his spear, and sucked in the last light of the sphere he'd been using to guide his way. The light that streamed off him revealed a red and black face. Shen looked disturbingly eerie in those shadows, like an evil spren from the stories.
Shen, what in the...
Sir, I must leave.
Kaladin frowned.
I am sorry. I cannot tell you why.
He seemed to be waiting for something, his hands tense on his spear, the spear Kaladin had given him.
You're a free man, Shen. I won't keep you here if you feel you must go. But I don't know that there is another place you can go where you will be able to make good on your freedom.
Shen nodded, then moved to walk past Kaladin.
You're leaving tonight?
Immediately.
The guards at the edges of the plains might try to stop you.
Harsh men do not flee captivity. They will see only a slave doing some assigned task. I will leave your spear beside the fire.
He walked to the door, but then hesitated beside Kaladin and placed a hand on his shoulder.
You are a good man, Captain. I have learned much. My name is not Shen. It is Relaine.
May the winds treat you well, Relaine.
The winds are not what I fear.
Shen patted Kaladin's shoulder and stepped from the chamber.
As to the other orders that were inferior in this visiting of the far realm of Spren, the Else-Callers were prodigiously benevolent, allowing others as auxiliary to their visits and interactions, though they did never...
So, as compared to my Hyundai Genesis Coupe 2-liter turbo, that was the best car I've ever driven in the winter time. But it had winter tires on it, and when I had my tires that came with it, I wasn't even able to get up the street, and the first time it snowed, I had to leave my car at the rink. But with winter tires, it was so good. And this car is great with all seasons, so I'm guessing, but I'm pretty sure that guess is an educated guess on once this thing has winter tires, it'll be just a tank through the snow. It should be very good. This car shifts so nice. even pinning it right here. See, the traction control won't let it spin. And, you know, pushes it a little to the side, and then it stops. But, you know, that's pretty good. Well, there you have it. There is the drive with my Ext 6-speed coupe.